Welcome back, everyone. Thank you for your patience. We will start this next section of the morning with the Martin Borough Community Board presentation, please. So for your benefit and the benefit of those who will follow behind you, you are allocated 10 minutes to present to the members. It is suggested that you make the presentation during the first 5 or 6 minutes and allow 4 or 5 minutes for questions from members. Your allocated time includes both your presentation time and time for questions. And once you get to about 9 minutes, Amy will give you a little wave just to let you know that you're coming to the end of your time.
I think I can safely say that we won't get there.
Well, let's make it a challenge.
But we're going to be very quick.
For the benefit of committee members, the Martin Borough Community Board submission is on page number 94 and speaking page number 3. So when you're ready, take it away.
Thank you for allowing us the time to speak. Appreciate it. This will be very brief. The community board supports wholeheartedly your move to the option of local water with the 4 groups involved. We think that's a very wise investment and should be something very good for the communities involved. From that, we just have 2 comments to make, and please accept them in the script they're given. The first one is we'd like to make sure that the CCO is comprising of extremely well educated people in waste and water systems. That's critical to get it working and get it working well. And whatever it takes, I think you can almost say would give you a license to do whatever it takes to get the right people involved. It's critical they get involved with. The other point I'd like to make is, and I've made this too in the long-term plan, please don't front load the cost in this option that you're going to take. Try and spread it out over the duration that you're expecting and make that cost it, because this is going to be something that's going to benefit people in the future. We can't do a hell of a lot about people in the past, but we can do a lot about people in the future. And don't load the current residents with too much cost that they're going to fall over with it. So that's my statement to that from the community. Do you have any questions about what we've said?
Any questions of clarification for the Councillor Holmes?
Thanks, Storm. I guess a quick question about front loading costs. You're saying board direct them not to impose additional costs on our communities. Is that what I'm sort of hearing?
It's exactly what I'm trying to say. Is that if you look at the term that you're going to set up this program on, and there will be a finite term before you get to start doing heavy maintenance and things like that, look at that and look at the influence that inflation and things are going to take and push that to the far end as opposed to putting it at the front end. So what we're trying to do is keep the costs to bear what they can be at the front end,
yes,
then incorporate the costs going forward. Now, I'm not sure if you're going to have much actual leverage on that, because we're talking to 3 other groups who might have different ideas and things like that, but I understand everybody's at a different stage of development. And so we just got to work those out. But that's all I'd say is that please don't load this on everybody today. Move it to the future.
Yep, thanks. Excellent. Thanks.
The amount of money involved for this work and how it's going to be funded is obviously a huge elephant in the room.
There's known. It's a very expensive, yeah.
The whole process needs to be rigorous and the funding of it needs to be brought out very clearly.
Thank you both.
That is the community board's finished.
Community board finished, close in scene.
Storm Robertson will now put his glasses on. He's not taking his top.
Costume change.
Costume changes with glasses on.
What about a hat?
No, I haven't got a hat. Sorry. I wish I had brought a hat because that would have been perfect.
Please, go forward ahead.
Doesn't think about it. Now,
So just before you start, Storm's personal submission is on page number 95, Speaker Pack page number 14.
So much of my personal presentation is very much aligned with what's happening in the community board's presentation. The only thing I would like to add to that is about the makeup of the CCO and how we go about building that, and getting the right people involved is critical. But I also think taking us forward, that there needs to be a very open process of how they work. So what I'd like to ask is that we don't have closed meetings on this. We do have lots of cooperation and collaboration with the public to keep them informed, because what we've come out of is a pretty poor situation. And what we're going to go through is we're going to need the residents all behind it. And I've found that with explanation and constant dialogue, you'll get that support from them to go through. Now, not to say we're not going to make mistakes, but if you make a mistake, put your hand up, say, made a mistake, apologies, here's what we're going to do about it. That's the thing that gets people tempered and accepting what's going to go on if there are mistakes, because there will be mistakes, I'm sure there will be. We can't avoid it, it's just life. But I do say, if we have an open dialogue to the residents, that would be the greatest thing you can contribute to making this thing work. Time's up. Glasses off. Any questions?
Any questions for the individual known as Mr. Storm, Councillor Evans?
Thanks, Chair. I've got two questions, Storm. In this submission, you're talking about ensuring we have the right people on board. Is that at the entity level, i.e. the CE and the staff that the CE employ, or is that at the board level, the White Plus T entity board level?
I think if we're talking at the board level, that you get people with experience and working knowledge of what they're doing. Because I think we've proved throughout not just here, everywhere, that with lack of that actual working knowledge, things can go awry. And if you've got people with working knowledge, they can make the right decision or help lead you to the right decisions.
Thanks. And my second question is your comments about explanation, dialogue, no closed meetings, cooperation, and collaboration. Has that come about in the last 6 months? Have your thoughts on that come out in the last 6 months with all the publicity about what this council has been facing with Wellington Water, or is that as a result of your experiences?
I put it down to your experiences and what's happening throughout councils in the country that are not bringing people involved into the discussion, which is a critical mistake. And it's not what's happened with, I can't talk about Wellington Water because that's another subject altogether. It has left, unfortunately, some bad stuff for you to pick up. But the general discussion I'm putting forward is from what I've seen around the country. And councillors need to front up to things like this and talk about it. And if you do, that's where I think you'll get some good buy-in.
Councillor Holmes.
Storm, just a quick question about a period of consultation with, obviously with LTP, but more so focused around what we're discussing today, which is local water's done well. Did you feel that that we've reached the community to a greater proportion this time round, or did you feel there were some gaps?
Look, Colin, you can always do better.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I think one of the differences between this and the long-term plan is that I think a lot more people were agreeing with what you're doing in this particular sector.
Yeah.
So they agree with it. So there's not much dialogue to be had from a lot of people because we agree with what's happening. So I can't add any more than say I agree with it and then get it. But as you travel down the journey, you need to keep talking to people about this is what's happening. This is what.
Yeah. No, I understand that. Thanks for that.
Good advice, take people on the journey.
Absolutely.
Any final questions for Storm before we say adieu?
I do.
Thank you, Storm.
Thank you.
Thanks, Storm.
Adieu.
I do. That came out of Mary Poppins thing, didn't it, or something?
It's a perennial dish. We haven't got Leah with us yet, so Sue, if you are ready and willing, we will move to your presentation.
What page is sitting?
So Sue's presentation is page 111 of the agenda pack, or 16 and 17 of this. Depending on which pack you are.
I'm Sue Fox. Apparently there's another Sue going to speak.
Sue Fox, we are waiting for you.
Okay. Right, well, it seems that I'm going to be presenting against the tide of others on this subject. I did put in a detailed written submission, as we mentioned, but I just wanted to highlight a couple of things and just to say to you in person that and give you an opportunity to ask questions. And I do realise that from the way that the long-term plan has been formulated, there's going to be a little prospect of changing council's mind to go with the council-controlled organisation. And, you know, again, this is despite the fact that this is a costlier, a more complicated option for the already overburdened ratepayers. What we're going to end up with is not just 3 councils, but 4 ratepayer-funded organisations in the small area of the Wairarapa with its very limited ratepayer base. So the only thing that I could suggest to ameliorate this problem, if council's prepared to work with Masterton and Carterton on a new council-controlled organisation to deal with the 3 waters as required by central government as one of the ways forward, well, why not amalgamate the 3 councils as well and make life a lot cheaper and easier for us ratepayers? You know, we're just going to add another level of CEOs and administrators on top of engineers to supervise other engineers, and the chain gets longer. South Wairarapa is just going to be the small relation when it comes to controlling the council-controlled organisation, because Masterton and Carterton will surely have the biggest sway. So again, South Wairarapa ratepayers are going to get the worst end of the situation. So, having said that, with all its failings over the last year or so, I think sticking with Wellington Water is the option of choice. So instead of the uncertainties and costs attached to forming a new CCO, let's stick with the devil we know. For a start, we wouldn't have to put in the $5 million worth of capital to set up the new CCO. And on a yearly basis, we would be $2.8 million better off, not having to spend that in the administrative costs of running the CCO. I think we would have more direct control if the Wellington Water contract could be managed much more closely on issues that have come to light over the past contract period. I think the focus should be on finding, sourcing, training contract managers to deal with the issues with Wellington Water. It seems to me that we have got to the bottom of many of the issues that have been raised, and it would be easier in the long run to actually tackle those than to just go into this whole new world of a 3-way split, council-controlled organisation for the whole of the Wairarapa. So just in summary, don't let's open up another end strain on Wairarapa ratepayers. Let's develop a Chair, to manage the waste, the Wellington Water contract a lot more closely and spend the monies that would be sucked into a new CCL into our Three Waters infrastructure. That's it. Any questions?
Thank you, Sue. I will go to questions. I just wanted to, just clarify with you in the understanding that, Wellington Water in and of itself as it is now will cease to exist when reform happens for all of its shareholding parties. So when you say stay with Wellington Water, do you in fact means maintain maintain the model of non-asset CCO, or are you suggesting that we should go with the Wellington option of going into a new Wellington?
Regional, regional CCO, yeah.
So just to clarify, which it is that you're suggesting we should do.
Well, I would definitely go the Wellington way.
Join the Wellington entity.
Yeah.
I think you pretty much answered my question. Thank you, sir.
Any other questions of Sue this morning? Thank you very much for your time, Sue. Lovely to see you again this week. All of the submissions made today in person and in writing will be considered as part of the deliberations in coming weeks. So you'll hear more about the outcome as we progress.
Yes.
In the absence of Leah this morning, we'll move to Adrian. Adrian, you could please join us. So Adrian's submission is page number 72 of the agenda pack, or pack number 2 in the speakers pack. Good morning, Adrian. Lovely to have you with us this morning. Make a start when you're ready.
First of all, my apologies for not being here at 9 o'clock. For some reason, it was in my diary tomorrow.
Okay.
Sure, I'll tell you. My name's Adrian Young Cooper and I'm a resident of Martinborough. And until a few months ago, I was independent chair of the Wairarapa Economic Development Strategy. And in that role, got to work with 3 of the 4 councils. I'm here to support the proposal in what the council has put out. And I just want to give you a little bit of background on my experience in these areas, because I want to make a couple of comments going forward. I'm currently advisor. I'm on the Audit and Risk Committee at New Plymouth District Council, and in that role, I'm providing some advice to them on local water done well. Which has been really interesting because a lot of the issues in Taranaki are not dissimilar to the Wairarapa, and all the councils have got together and are in the same process, and they have also have recommended exactly what you have, which is that there can be a single CCO for all the councils there, and they're in the same process of consultation. I have personally been on the board of or chaired about 5 CCOs. They've been located in Central Otago and in Auckland. In Central Otago, I was the chair of the Queenstown Airport Corporation until very recently. And in Auckland, I've been on about 6 council-controlled organisations established by Auckland City Council and Auckland Regional Council, and also some of the individual councils and then Auckland Council itself. And they include Eco Water, which ran all the water services for Waitakere City in its days, Auckland Regional Transport Authority, which ran public transport in Auckland, Waterfront Auckland, which looked after urban regeneration. And I also did a lot of consulting work for Watercare. Some of the things that I've learned, which I think have sort of come up with various discussions here, I think are actually really relevant to going forward. The issue of council controlled organisations, that people get scared that they're too arm's length and that they don't have enough control. My most recent experience of a community basically shaping its CCO was Queenstown Airport. When I took over as chair, we had just entered into COVID, and the airport was in a really bad relationship with its majority of the shareholders of the council we spent 18 months basically making sure that our statement of intent, which is the incredibly important guiding document for that council controlled organisation, aligned with the council's actual desires. And rather than being a CCO, you know, kind of going off and doing its own thing. And that involved a series of workshops with members of the board and members of the council, and we just worked through it. In that process, we also had lots of public consultation on the statement of intent, and then eventually the airport did a master plan. We did a huge amount of public consultation. We're completely open about all of that, and I can tell you that that company is in fantastic heart currently with massive community support. We managed to turn it around in about 3 years, and we did it by listening to our shareholder and listening to the community and not trying to do the maximise the profit or maximise the revenues type things that businesses often do. And all the CCOs that I've been associated with, in greater or lesser extent, have got a very close relationship with their shareholders and have got a very close relationship with their community, but also their customer base. And I think it's going to be really important when the CCO is established that a lot of thought goes into making sure that right at the start there's really great alignment, and it'll be a great opportunity for the 4 councils to actually work together. One of the great things about the CCO, and I'm very supportive of this rather than joining with Wellington, I am a big organisation person. I like big organisations and their capacities, but having lived here or been a ratepayer here for 7 years, I see actually how strong the community interest is here. And actually one of the things is that it's a whole series of small communities. Even Masterton is actually pretty small. And if you put all the population together of all of these councils, you still only get just over 50,000 people. It's actually still a pretty small council. If it was a single council, don't get caught up in the amalgamation debate. That's having to push that off in Taranaki as well and saying, no, this is about water, you know, water and wastewater. And what you do is, you know, we've got a whole of small communities. We've got everyone needs good drinking water. Everybody needs good wastewater services, which actually protect the environment. But they're just far enough apart that it's really hard to have the big grand scheme. Now, maybe there may be 1 or 2 things that get thought about differently over decades. If there's a single CCO, you know, was really interesting hearing that in Taranaki, there is actually now a connection between Eltham, which is, and Hawera, in terms of the wastewater treatment. And I was really surprised by that, because when I was growing up in that part of the world, they were different towns and different councils. Now it's one unity. They actually think about things a bit differently, but there are limits to that because there's the challenges of geography. So it's these communities are all sort of quite similar. It's really expensive. I know this is a Markham resident. It's just so expensive to actually do the upgrades of our systems and make them safe. We need to have a good entity which has got enough scale that we're able to actually attract great people who are prepared to come and live in the Wairarapa, grow their families here, stay here, build their careers. And if they want some flash, you know, new job just over the hill, there's going to be a big entity hopefully over there as well. That might fix up Wellington's water problems. So, you know, that there are going to be sort of career opportunities sort of within commuting distance. So I think that to be able to recruit and retain a great sort of bunch of people, and there'll be good people here already working here, would be a really great outcome from the CCO. So in summary, I think that I really support the council's proposals. I think that we'll be better off if we work together. I think that from it, and I know that you already work a lot with all the other councils, I think this will actually create an entity of sufficient scale and financial clout and expertise to be able to do a great thing for all the councils. You can definitely deal with the issue of, you know, being a smaller guys on the block. That is being sorted out through the way the shareholder council's been put together. And I can tell you that New Plymouth, which is the gorilla in the room, will not be dominating the actual appointment of directors, because the Ely representatives and all the councils, there is no single party who's going to be able to say, we want our, you know, our man, our woman on the board and override all the others. They've thought really carefully about that, and I'm sure you can too. So strong support for what you're doing. And I hope that when you get through this whole process, we have a great plan which will go through to the government.
Fabulous, thank you for that. Councillor Old, start us off.
And thanks very much. And I want to congratulate you on coming to Martinborough to live, because I think you've found a key spot in the area. And also, yes, it's not necessarily a question, but obviously with your experience within the Taranaki region and working on this, you would have a sort of hands-on view of what the actual structure could look like. So I appreciate your knowledge and wisdom. Thanks for that. Yeah.
Questions? Or anything?
Thorough,
Yeah, very thorough. Thank you for making time this morning to present and sharing your very broad knowledge with us.
Thanks so much.
And the final one in this block is Leah. Leah's submission is page 150 and page 15 of the speakers bank. Good morning, Leah. So as last week, you have 10 minutes to present to us. So this suggested that you make your presentation in the first 5 or 6 minutes and allow time for questions at the end. And Amy will give you a wave at about 9 minutes.
Great, thank you. Apologies for my late arrival. I had a little pet gambling situation this morning, so I had to attend to that. Yeah, thank you for allowing me to speak again to my submission. Firstly, let me acknowledge the scale of the decision before you. The future of water services in South Waikato isn't just technical matter. It's a foundational issue that affects our health, resilience and affordability, our community and heading into the future. After reading the consultation document, I come to this conclusion. Option 1 is being presented as not just the preferred choice, but as the only viable choice. Option 2, the status quo, is a genuine alternative, not a genuine alternative. It's clear that continuing under Wellington Waters model is financially and strategically unsustainable. However, while option 1 offers promise, it also raises several unanswered questions and leaves critical gaps in strategic planning. If option 1 doesn't succeed or faces delays, cost overruns or governance issues, then what? There's no fallback plan, no third option, no clear roadmap or contingencies, and that's a real concern. Even more pressing, the financial remodelling reveals that even with increased borrowing limits of up to 500%, the new water entity may fall short of being able to fund the infrastructure upgrades it urgently needs. This exposes us to both financial and service delivery risks that the current consultation process doesn't adequately address. So I want to put forward 5 key questions that I hope are addressed before the council makes a final decision. Where is the plan for standing up the new water entity? Specifically, how will we secure staff, technical enterprise and operational leadership to ensure continuity and excellence of service delivery, especially if the potential is that we're going to develop 30 new entities across the whole country? What is the process for appointing the board of directors and who decides, and how will community values, affordability and equity be presented to that board? If the council has no formal governance role, how will it ensure that the local feedback from ratepayers is heard and acted on? And will there be mechanism for oversight and advocacy or even recall? How will affordability be maintained when ratepayers are now facing 2 invoices from one council and one new water entity? What tools or commitments will ensure water charges don't outpace people's ability to pay? If option 1 falls over or faces legal, political or financial barriers, what is the contingency plan? Because right now, option 2 isn't viable and option 1 isn't guaranteed. So it brings me to a critical point. The council need to be willing to push back. Local government cannot accept being boxed into a corner with no workable solution. If both of the government proposed options fail to meet the practical and financial needs of our district, the council must be prepared to take a principled stand. That means advocating forcibly for a third option that genuinely reflects the scale and nature of our local challenges. Challenging central government to revise legislative frameworks if they're unworkable for small districts like ours. Requests co-investing or transitional funding to budget affordability gaps while long-term solutions are developed. And if necessary, mobilising other councils in similar positions to seek a more tailored regional and rural approach. South Wairarapa should not be forced to adopt an unproven model because there are no other options on the table. It's policy by default and we must try to demand better. In closing, I urge this council to look beyond our binary framing of option 1 and 2 and begin a third conversation, one rooted in transparency, community accountability, strategic realism, and the people of South Wairarapa deserve not just water that is safe and sustainable, but a process that also is. Thank you.
Thank you, Leah. As I'm sure you're aware, we aren't in a position in a hearing to answer the questions that you've asked. I would just clarify that you're aware that part of the government legislation in this process is that the next major milestone is a service delivery plan by September. But of course, that requires a decision on which pathway will be taken to provide a service delivery plan in the unknown, which means that this decision needs to be finalised so that that service delivery plan can be finalised. That gets submitted to the government, which gives us that we will soon to the further review. Any other questions for Ian?
Mm.
No?
Thank you.
Right.
Where would you email it to me?
Absolutely.
No, it's easy to find you.
I can find it.
We did have Dean down for after our break, 11:15, but Dean is here, so I would encourage Dean, if you are willing to jump on in.
The thought of a break is great.
Page,
Break for you.
Speaking page number 18. Dean, for your benefit, as we've been just stroll on in and we've pounced on you. As per last week, you are allocated 10 minutes to present to members of this committee. It is suggested that you make the presentation during the first 5 or 6 minutes and allow 4 or 5 minutes for questions from members. Your allocated time includes both the presentation time and time for questions from members. And Amy will give you a wave at 9 minutes. Take it away when you're ready.
I think this is a unique consultation, and I want to start prefacing by saying I think the government's delivered us an absolute lemon of legislation that we have to work within. And when you dig deep into documents you've got, your submission to the select committee highlighting the dangers of what is in front of us is quite profound. And it's a pity in a way that those thoughts didn't flow through into this document that you've handed to us. Option 2, the existing approach is well represented in the long-term plan, and Audit New Zealand has given it an adverse audit finding. This has only left option 1 as a contender for the councillors. This starkness has left us in the unenviable position where tunnel vision can take over and red flags are missed. Option 1 is not a good option. In fact, it is filled with many pitfalls that need to be addressed before councillors can safely sign off on it. What caveats are other councils placing on the South Wairarapa before a final deal is done? Do we need to spend any upfront money, input extra funds to balance the liabilities we generate with other councils, notwithstanding the $5 million that needs to be borrowed to stand up with the CCO? You've not released any significant data to show the difference between the proposed costs between option 1 and option 2, namely 220 and 280 million. It seems unbelievable that we can stand up a new company smaller than Wellington Water, fight to hire expertise while many other CCOs are going to be stood up at the same time. They're going to also try and hire these resources, and everyone's going to try and hit the ground running. So we're going to be fighting for everything to start working all at the same time. So how are we going to be $60 million better off than Wellington Waters? Wellington Water has the pick of the crop to choose from when it was set up. It now has the expertise and the realities facing councils and solving complex infrastructure issues. regardless of the headlines denouncing Wellington Water, we can't really discount that they're not actually going to be working better than the company that we set up. Under option 1, we transfer $18 million of revenue capability to the new organisation, $36 million of debt and a 500% debt to revenue allowance by central government, a capacity to raise 54 million extra debt, less any stand-up costs. And that's out of a proposed $220 requirement. The shortfall is mind-boggling. When we enter into a new CCO and we're only providing 20% of the funding capability that is needed, this 80% has to be made up from other councils. My question is, why would they take this on? What happens if another council doesn't join in? What is South Wairarappa's go, no-go financial capability and participation rate that the council has set before it is prepared to say yes to option 1? Or are we blindly going down the path, telling each other this is our only option and we can do it, hoping somehow that it will be all okay? Central government requires financial stability, a well-demonstrated model, and communities have a good understanding. So I ask you, please release all data that you have worked with to show financial stability and that this model actually works. As for the community having a good understanding, without an independent audit similar to option 2, there is no credibility for this option, and the few numbers you have provided scream that this is not workable. Given that under this model, it is a multi-council organisation, it is important that we show the relevant data from the other councils as to how much borrowing capacity they bring to the new organisation, how much debt they introduce, and the expected revenue they can supply. Which council is going to be net positive for debt funding to cover our appalling 20% cover we can offer for our costs? This legislation allows councils to put other options up for consultation. Given the negative comments and concerns raised by this council during the Central Government Committee hearing stage, a prudent third option, given the unrealistic numbers we face or that I have seen so far, it is to consult on going back to central government saying CCOs are an unrealistic option for rural councils and central government cannot wash its hand of this mess it has created and needs to contribute to resolving the issues nationwide. So before you sign off on option 1, I ask you, have an independent audit to verify this plan is workable and sustainable long term. Outline to the community how you will staff this new organisation whilst many other CCOs are being stood up, fighting for staff, equipment and resources. What are the key constraints we will face in achieving this? Release all data to show how you have determined this option is achievable. And then I ask you to guarantee that we'll only go into this new organisation if all other councils agree. Thank you.
Thanks, Dean. So I'll kick us off with 2 questions. The first is a question that I asked of an earlier presenter. So when you talk about option 2 and refer to Wellington Water, are you clear that option 2 isn't Wellington Water? Option 2 is status quo model, so a non-asset owning CCO, not Wellington Water. So Wellington Water in and of itself now ceases to exist post.
So we lose Wellington Water.
Wellington Water ceases to exist. So option 2 is us on our own in a non-asset owning CCO, which is shown to be viable in the document. My second question has escaped my mind, so I'll go to Councillor Olds and hopefully my brain will come back.
Dean, I'm just wondering, you had an awful lot of questions in your presentation to us today, and I wondered whether or not you took the opportunity during the consultation process to have a conversation with one of the councillors who attended those, or some of the officers as well, because it's important you understand, and I've been really have to say I've emphasised the importance of understanding the complexities of what we're venturing into. So
yeah, I think that's a really good question, and I'll answer that in a few ways. One is, the answer is yes, I did. I was at the Kitchener's briefing. It was very hard to get to speak, because once you start speaking, there's so much to speak about. It's very hard to monopolise people's times. The other thing is, it absolutely is very complex, and the consultation document doesn't give us any of that information. And, you know, I really appreciate what you've said about option 2. I didn't know that, but I feel like I've gone through the document, I've looked at some of your associated documents, and I've missed out, you know, what is a fatal. That frustrates me on the basis of, well, I'm not talking about something that's relevant. But more importantly, it's really hard for you guys because I know you're time limited because it's economic suicide to be a councillor. So you're time limited and you've taken all this on. We only get to see what you give us. So we have none of the preamble. We have none of the understanding of what discussions have been had. So when I ask the question, I don't know what you've done. I don't know what information you've been given. And I'm just saying, I think I'm saying, hey, think about this. This is what concerns me as a ratepayer. And so I'm not trying to say, aha, I gotcha. But what I'm trying to say is, have we really thought about this? From an outsider looking in, I feel like we're going down a pathway. We're going to spend $5 million. We're going to get a bad organisation. We're going to struggle to staff it. And it's going to fail. And we're going to have to go to central government, and not just us, Luther, Ruapehu, all around New Zealand, the small regional councils have to go to central government and say, you gave us a lemon and it's not working. That's the feeling from what information I have.
So my
Thanks.
brain re-engaged, thank you. My comment really was that a lot of the questions that you've asked will be answered in the service delivery plan, which is the next biggest milestone.
Yeah.
Milestone that is coming. It's part of the legislation. So that's the next milestone in this journey. The Mayor has a question and Councillor Eland.
Just leading on from what you're saying, that's a really good point. So we're coming in after the first part of the consultation. It's almost like you want to flip this on its head and get input before you get into all your detail and issue out the documents. Because once you've issued out the documents, you sort of know the pathway you're going. So a lot of our questions are just superfluous. And as much as they're well-meaning, it's like, yeah, well, you know, it's going to get asked in the next phase. So if we could have more value inputting up front, I think we'd get a better consultation document, and then we wouldn't need to ask these questions.
Fair call. So Mr. Mayor and then Councillor Eland.
Look, I just beg your indulgence, Chair. I think it's potentially useful for Dean and others to know that there's been a substantial release of information, OIO information on our website, and it's there for anybody to read. So it probably will answer a good number of questions and explain, hopefully, why we've got to where we've got.
Councillor Eland will wrap up with your.
Thanks, Chair. Dean, you commented in your submission about the council's submission to the select committee. I think that was the submission back in June. I think June was probably 8 months after new government had come in and started the ball rolling with this water reform. I think, you know, since that submission went to the select committee, the council staff and councillors all working on this process have done an incredible amount of work. So certainly what was submitted back then, hopefully that had some input into that third bill that was going through the central government process. But certainly the work that has been put in has been substantial to get to this stage, and like Chair has said, you know, those questions, but also the questions of others, you know, there is still work continuing on. The water service delivery plan's coming, you know, just this process, it's not the end of the, it's not non-stop. We're still continuing on because and you know, that's model that we've had in the past with Wellington Water, sure it's CCO, but I think that, you know, for this council, we have learnt what works and what doesn't work with that model. With any CCO, there is still going to be a council committee. So councillors, whether for South Wye, Carlton, Marston, Tauranga, will still have input into the entity, into the board level of the entity coming through. So we have learnt lessons. We've learnt some good lessons out of Wellington Water. We've learned what doesn't work out of Wellington Water. All of that stuff's going to be meshed together going forward into this new entity. None of us want to repeat what's happened in the past.
I mean, I totally agree. We've got some exceptional people working on it. And you know, I'd like to think one in particular will be invited by us to be on the board of the new entity. It's great that you can give that reassurance. And I think part of your next phase is to have a statement of, this is the journey we've taken, this is how we feel, this is why we're confident. And I, you know, from, again, us looking in, you know, we don't know how you feel. And so, you know,
I mean, I get it.
yeah,
You know, prior to 2019, when I came on community board, I was in that boat. I got onto community board.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We need to wind back in time. You've made some really good points about how we can better share information. I would encourage you to check out the IOA releases that have been made proactively on the website. Some of the information you're looking for is there. Some of it will come through service delivery plan, but you've made some really good points about how we can better communicate where we've come through as well. So thank you for that. As I mentioned earlier, all submissions and presentations will be considered as part of deliberations over the coming weeks.
thank you very much.
So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Rather than take a break, I think we'll just rock on. Which means we will now move on to the local Dun Vale hearings report, and Robin is with us, taking us through that.
Yeah,
Wanna-
I shan't put Robin into it because I had intended to speak to it myself. So.
Thanks, Robin. Take a seat. Robin, as you were.
So I was hoping that we'd have a quick break because I need to.
2 seconds, that's just, yeah.
2 second pause. Well, that's
I've anticipated I'd be doing this at the start. My apologies.
Before Paul takes us through the report, and just while councillor Maynard is out of the room, I know we have had one late submission from Rangatani to Maira Trust received on Tuesday, 22nd of April. It is from a significant statutory stakeholder, noting that there was likely some confusion related to the closing date, as this is a submission for all councils, 3 of which had not yet closed on the date that this submission was received to us. I am happy to move to accept the late submission from Rangatani to Maira Trust. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, councillor Olds. All those in favour, please say aye. All those against, no. The motion is carried. Mr. Paul, when you're ready.
Through you, Chair. It's been a very interesting morning already, and so I'll just cover the main points of this report. It's been a long time in the making, and I'd just like to remind the table about some of the earlier points that were or decisions and direction setting that was actually made by council around the consultation process. So council resolved to use the alternate requirements, the Local Government Water Services Preliminary Arrangements Act of 2024, that basically provided council the opportunity to table 2 options through the consultation process. That has been the basis of how we undertook the consultation process. It is different to our council's significant engagement policy, where we would present all available options. The Act allowed us to refine that down for better consumption by the community, based on the initial thoughts of council. As a result of the 2 questions, so what was set out that were agreed to on the 5th of March, option 1, a multi-council control organisation, and option 2, the existing approach for water through the current Wellington Water Model. We got 135 submissions that were received, including the latest one from Rangitana. The other things that I would highlight is the amazing efforts of this table and of council officers through the 33 events that were actually run in order to inform and engage with the community in a variety of different ways. It really embodied the idea of the to you kind of consultation rather than to us. It was an awful lot of proactive engagement to help inform and educate, and part of an education was going to Mr. Mayor's point a while ago about the proactive Lagoma releases that have been part of our website to help inform and educate our community on some of the issues that were at play. So that really is all I intended to highlight in terms of this report. As a result of the latest of today's hearings and the latest submission from Rangitana, there will need, of course, to be a very slight adjustment to recommendations 2 and 3. But other than that, I'd invite any questions of myself or the wider team.
Any questions from the table? Councillor Olds, you've been first for every section, so might as well first for this.
I have, yeah.
Today.
Thank you, Paul. The paper's very well presented, and certainly the whole process from woe to go has been, or go to woe, at this stage has been quite a task, and I have to say the efforts of Robin and Jen, of course, have assisted us greatly in getting to the stage we're at now, and the work that they've been involved has just been phenomenal. I can't help but compliment the presentation and work and what we've been presented with, and what our community has been presented with as well. And I guess it was just a real vote of thanks to the team for putting this together. A vote of thanks to my council colleagues for doing their little bit as well. And I just noted on here that my little vlog got 1,691, which is right up there, I guess, in terms of that consultation. On that note, thanks, Paul.
Competition going on.
Yeah, I think so.
Bit of healthy inter-council.
Absolutely. A lot of fun.
Councillor Maynard, did you have a connecting question?
It's gone. sorry. I hadn't written it down and it's gone. But so Paul, I'll just email you.
Okay.
Yes, I think it's worth acknowledging that this is the paper for this portion of the process, and we will continue on with our deliberations and our debate and our decision-making process over the coming weeks. I think it's been said several times this morning, this is a complex issue, and there will, as we make this decision, there will remain some unknowns because we are still working through a process, and some of the questions asked of us today won't fully become realised until the entity is in place, whichever entity it is that we decide to enter into. And that is just the nature of the beast that we've been given by central government. So,
if I may, just one final point. I mean, obviously the recommendation before is saying deliberations are set for the 8th of May. But one of the speakers spoke earlier about the adverse opinion. Just to reiterate once again, the adverse audit opinion for the long-term plan for the consultation documents only. And the reason for that was because of its dependence on water reform.
That's right.
So we have been handbraked somewhat by the approach that we've taken, and I hope I'm not speaking out of turn, but I congratulate your boldness around the table in making that decision and taking the direction that you did, because it's certainly the feedback I've had through the various consultation sessions, as well as my colleagues, has been very supportive of the they need to be transparent. And I think that is one fabulous example of how this council has attempted to do that around this process, despite the various shades of grey elsewhere in the forward planning.
Sorry, Councillor Maynard.
This was not what I was going to ask, but actually, is it possible just to have a breakdown? I mean, I can go through and I can count every single one myself, but however, it is really nice when we receive these types of reports that we just have a graph that shows option 1, option 2, you know, and then other, which is people who have said option 1 without, you know, those types of things, just so that it makes it a bit easier when we're going through. It's because they're more high level, you know, where we're needing to be looking, and this we're needing to go through and actually count through everything ourselves. And
Thank you, Councillor.
yeah,
I mean,
and as well, LTP.
I'm remembering that this is the hearings report, so the deliberations report.
I know. I'm not talking about you, but I just
Yeah, it will be really, the purpose of the deliberations report, it will be presented in a way that's easily consumable for you, and you're able to make a decision on easily.
Thank you. That's not what I was going to ask either. It'll come back.
Right.
We did not. Just confirming. Beautiful. Right, that moves us on to the recommendations. I am looking for a mover, please, to receive the full set of submissions on the locally built and done well water services delivery options. We'll do them in a block, but I'm sure you'll move them all. Note that 135 submissions were received. Note that of the received submissions, 8 were confirmed to be heard today, and note that deliberations are scheduled for 8 May 2025. The mayor will move all of those. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Woodcock. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
All those against, no. The motion is carried. That brings us to our closing comparison here, which is just one more case over here.
Yeah.
Have we got it there?
It's on the agenda as well. In case you don't have that in front of you, could you all please stand, and we'll do the closing comment.
Manaki tia mai mātou katoa, o mātou ua, o mātou whānau, aio ki te aorangi.
Kia ora, thank you. That is the end of this meeting. I did just double check with Amy, and our workshop, which was scheduled for 12:30, has been pulled forward to 11:30. Thank you, Amy. So we've got about 30 minutes